Alright, hopefully this sounds a little bit better than the last video. So we are going to look at if statements and how we can use them to make decisions in our programs. So we have a simple circuit here that I've set up, and we did this last class, so if you haven't done it, you can very quickly set this up so you can do it. What I'll do is I will change this so the colors are correct. So this will be black and black. Black. So you can change, and this is a one. You can probably actually drop that down to 100. All right. So now this is a really simple circuit, and it uses a button. So the button, when you push it, it connects these two terminals together, completing the circuit, and it will turn on the LED. So you can see. So if I start the simulation, nothing happens, but I click on the button and you can see that actually I'm clicking on it and you can see that the LED is turning on. Great. So that's using the button as a decision maker. If the button is pushed, then the light comes on. Very simple, but not very smart. There's nothing really intelligent happening back here. So we're going to turn this into code where we can then use this information to make decisions about other things. It can make decisions based on is the smoke detector detecting anything? Okay, let's turn a light on if that's happening. A simple button unfortunately won't accomplish that task, so we have to get into a little bit smarter of coding here. So I'm going to open up the code, and we don't have any code built. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go back into this one here. I'm going to go back into my other project, and you can set up your wires the same way that I have mine set up here once it loads here. I can refresh the page. It seems to take a little bit of time. There we go. So let's find our button. Okay. So here is our circuit. So you can pause the video and set up your wiring the same. These are 100 ohm resistors, and that's a 10,000 kilo ohm resistor. Make sure your button is set up this way so it's bridging across this gap here. Other than that, set up your wires the same as mine. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to take, so I've created 3 variables. I have my integer for my LED pin, which is 6, which goes just like how you've always seen, goes to power my LED. I have the button pin, which comes from this post of the button, so that goes up and around to pin number 7. And I have this other variable that I've created called button state. This is going to keep track of is my button being pushed or not. So it's going to look at, I'm going to use some code to grab whether the button is being pushed, and it will return a 1 or a 0, and if it's a 1, I want to turn that LED on. You'll see how it works. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an if statement. So an if statement is if something is true, then run the code that's in between the curly brackets. So it's kind of like a gatekeeper. If it's true, let them in. Okay. So I'm going to say if. I'm going to use brackets, and I'm going to say, actually, first thing I need to actually, before I do anything, I need to grab the state of the button. So I'm going to say button state. Okay. I'm going to say equals and digital read. Actually, I want it to be state equals digital read. Okay. And I want to do button pin. Okay. So just like how we did with digital write, this is going to read the status of the button. It's going to return a 1 or a 0. A 0 if it's off, and a 1 if it's on. Okay. Alright, so now I've got button state has stored this value that is on your button pin. So if I'm pushing the button, button state will be equal to 1. If I'm not pushing the button, button state will be equal to 0. Okay, so now I'm going to make a decision. I'm going to say if, we'll say button state, we'll say equals, and I use two equal signs here because I'm comparing and I'm not setting a value. So here I'm setting a value, so I use 1 equal sign. If I'm comparing, I use 2. Okay, so I'm going to say if buttons, actually I'm going to say 1, if it equals 1, and I don't need a semicolon at the end because it's not a command, it's a question. I'm going to say digital right, and I'm going to set LED pin to high. Okay, now so we can try this. We can start the simulation, and I'm going to push the button, and great, it turns on. Okay, but it's not turning off like it should be. Okay, so why is that? So if we follow the logic through here, so it's just, remember, the Arduino is just looping through this constantly, very, very quickly. So what we want to do is we want to look at, okay, so first thing it's doing is it's setting button state to equal that, which in this case, in most cases, if I were to start it and stop it, it's actually equal to 0, right? Because I haven't changed its value at all. I set it as 0 to begin with, and it is still 0 because the digital pin hasn't been turned on. So this is, remember, this is our gatekeeper. If this is not true, which right now it isn't, so it's just skipping over this. It's just skipping. It's not doing anything. As soon as I push the button, okay, the LED, this becomes equal to 1, and the gatekeeper goes, oh, button state is now equal to 1, so I'm going to set the pin to high. Okay, and even though the loop is coming back around, this is now equal to 0 because I'm not pushing the button anymore, and it's saying, okay, I'm not going to turn it high, but it also doesn't turn it to low, so there's nothing in here that's turning it to low, which is not what I want. So what I'm going to do is I am going to add, there's a sort of a go along with an if is called an else. Okay, so it's called an else. So if this, do this, else, so if not, do this. So I am going to set digital right LED pin to low. All right, so now what should happen, this is my prediction, that when I start the program, the LED will be off because this will be 0. As soon as I push the button, this will be true, so then it will run this code, which will then be, it'll turn on the LED, and then as soon as I let go, it'll loop back around, and this will go back to 0, and then it should go, okay, not this, but, okay, so if not this, then this, and we're going to turn the LED to low. So I'm going to start the simulation, and okay, LED is off, that's good. So I'm going to click, oh, LED comes on, and when I let go, LED goes out. Perfect, that's exactly what I want. So that is how we use an if statement to make a decision. It's a little bit more intelligent. And so what I can do too is I can say, just to prove that there's a little bit more functionality than if you just had the push button wired in, I could then say delay, let's go like 1 second, and I'm going to say digital right LED pin low. So I'm going to have it flash a few times. Let's grab that first here. Okay, so I'm going to have it flash when I push the button. It's kind of like a warning light. Click. There we go. So it flashed. And then that way, it will do that for me. Okay, so that's how you write an if statement, and that's how you implement it. So again, something that will be very useful in your programs as you start adding sensors and input. You want to make decisions based on that input, so that'll be if statements will become very, very important.